Welcome to the Deeper Into Movies podcast. My name is Stephen T. Hanley. I'm the founder and lead curator of Deeper Into Movies. We are a pop-up cinema based in London and New York. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Anna Khachiyan. She is the co-host of the fantastic and infamous podcast Red Scare. I've been a Red Scare subscriber for years. Anna and I have spoke in the DMs here and there. I'm friends with her partner, the musician Eli Kessler, who scored Scary 61st, out now on Deeper Into Movies Records, #ad. And I wanted to speak to Anna for so long, and people are always requesting her. So here we are. And I loved our conversation. It was really nice and chaotic. And we spoke about Real Housewives, Michel Houellebecq, Morrissey, Eastbound and Down. And yeah, we got into a lot of different places. And as expected, Anna is super smart and hilarious. Here is me and Anna Khachiyan. Hey, how's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, cool. I thought that would be more of a problem.
No, that's all good. How's things with you?
Good.
How was Paris? Was it Paris you were in?
It was really fun.
And how was meeting Lisa Rinna?
She was really sweet.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like an unfairly maligned character. She's clearly like a harmless attention whore
Yeah.
and just likes like being photographed and interviewed.
Didn't she like set up Garcelle in the...
In the show. I have a confession to make. I haven't been following along with the show, so I don't know what's going on there, but I guess she was forced to leave the show under like dubious circumstances, so I have to read up on that.
Yeah, I think she basically had a Finsta where she'd just comment loads of shit and shit stir or...
She's a real shit stir and shit talker,
Yeah.
but that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I like a hustler mentality. She definitely
Me too.
will promote anything and just sell anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, she kind of fucked herself up aligning with Erika Jane this last.
That's true. What's going on with Erika Jane?
She's fucked.
She knew what was happening with her husband.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
She was just here for the lifestyle and kind of... I don't know how you could not when something's that big and there's that many millions going through the accounts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got brainwashed by my fiance.
Oh, yeah.
With watching the Bravo Sphere.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's so good. I sort of like, this is bullshit. And then 3 weeks later, I'm like, I can't believe she wore that dress to the reunion. She looks terrible. What the fuck? Salt Lake City is just like a Manson family cult, which is...
It's too much for me, yeah. I've never really gotten into Salt Lake. I watch New Jersey because I'm from New Jersey, so...
How about Vanderpump?
Vanderpump, well, they're coming back, right? They were canceled for a while, and now they're back. I just heard that Tom and Ariana split. That's all I know. I'm like a Jeffrey Dahmer victim with a hole drilled into my head, like stumbling around the Bravo extended universe.
Just with like acid in your brain, just not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, and like Tom Sandoval and Ariana, whatever her name is, split. For some reason, this is significant to me. And obviously all the Vanderpump girls had COVID babies, just like me.
Right.
So it's very relatable, yeah. But I guess they'll be back and I'll get back into it.
Yeah. It's pretty legendary. I know Tom was always such a nice guy, so it was kind of crazy that he did this, but I guess that's the big dramatic plot twist that those were a good couple.
Yeah. Ariana Maddox, that's her name.
Yes. She's cool.
They were like the ultimate like closeted LGBT couple.
Hugely, yes.
He's clearly gay and she's clearly a lesbian.
I was so sad when I went to LA and I went to Sir and it was fucking terrible. It's
It
such
is.
a
It's
clapped
really
out,
bad.
beat
Yeah.
up restaurant. And I was like,
Yeah.
you can kind of see through the Instagram filters they put on the show that it could look quite nice,
Yeah.
but in person it's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, that's how so many things are. It's like a real Potemkin village.
Yeah. And then I went to Tom Tom and I got served the worst mixed drink I've ever had in my life. It was just so bad. But
Really?
and they forgot to
Wow.
charge me, so that was kind of something. But
Well, I have two questions for you. Number one, uh, what were you doing there? And B, number two, how much do they charge for? Because it's supposed to be like a kind of like a artisanal cocktail bar, right?
yeah, I was there for on holiday for my 40th. I went just before COVID. I went to New York for 10
Uh,
days and I went to LA for 10 days.
hmm.
It was good. We had dinner with Brayson Ellis, and he said just literally down the road, there's all the Vanderpump bars,
Yeah,
and said, okay, let's go on a pilgrimage.
WeHo.
Yeah. And then Tom Tom, I think it's around $20
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
for a old fashioned, but it was so badly mixed. And then we were just hanging at the bar, and then she forgot to charge us and went off and talked to her friend. And then I was like, I never thought I'd save it, but this drink is so bad, I'm just going to leave it and get an Uber home. I'm just done. Like, yeah, painful.
Yeah, it's one of the most cursed places in the world.
So I was just thinking about this the other day. What do you say when people ask, what do you do? How do you describe yourself?
What do I do? I mean, I'm a podcasteuse, a podcastrice,
Yeah.
as they say in French. I guess I would say I'm a podcaster. That seems to me like the most easy and expedient way of describing myself. I'm a I'm an anti-hyphenate.
I do one thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
I do nothing.
Yeah, I always struggle with when people say, what do you do? I say I show movies and they say, oh, you have a cinema. And I'm like, well,
Are you a
no, but
pornographer?
yeah. And then I say I've got residencies in various things and it just takes too long. And then you start over explaining and it's almost like you end up I almost feel like I go back to that time when I was broken starting out and having to really justify this as a viable career.
Yeah.
And it just takes me back to my broke days. But I don't know. But then if you say you run an entertainment company, you sound like you're fucking...
You sound like a liar and a sociopath.
Yeah, just like you're really trying to flex. There's no way of winning.
I'm a girl boss.
Yeah, I'm a CEO.
Yeah.
So what did you grow up watching and reading and listening to? What kind of teenager were you?
I was probably a very brooding and surly teenager who thought I was much more brooding and surly than I was. I remember reading the Perfectly Imperfect newsletter with Peter Vack, where he talks about how he grew up with this impression of himself as being kind of like a recluse and a contrarian. And then he realized that actually he had a lot of friends and having friends is great and fun and nice. Um, I started watching a lot of very grown up movies at an inappropriately young age, thanks to my mom, who was always kind of like a hipster and a bohemian. Uh, and, you know, what she lacked in, say, like normal maternal kind of like warmth and enthusiasm, she like more than made up for by throwing us into the deep end of like art and cinema. She was really into uh Fassbender and Lars von Trier because she's kind of the original edgelord troll poster. I'm merely following in her footsteps and like monetizing her harsh inner voice. Um, she showed me A Clockwork Orange when I was like 10 years old, and I have this
Jesus.
very vivid, awkward memory of watching that like infamous rape scene where the gang cuts the woman's jumpsuit at
Yeah.
the nipples. sandwiched between my mom and my dad.
Oh
And
my
I could
God.
feel like their bodies tensing up. Um, and she took me to New York a lot because we lived in suburban New Jersey. And she took me to like a Yoko Ono retrospective where they screened Erection.
Oh wow, I haven't seen her.
You know that Yoko Ono piece?
No, I haven't seen any of
It's like a film.
right. I haven't seen any of her film work.
And it's like a film of like a short film, I think, of a building going up. But I think it's set to, it's like very like Serge Gainsbourg, if I recall correctly. And there's like some sex noises happening. And then she showed me Harmony Korine's Gummo and Vincent Gallo's Buffalo 66 when they came out. This was like 97, 98. So I must have
Yeah.
been like 12 or 13. And back then you had to rent everything at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Uh, and I remember my parents being like particularly excited about Pulp Fiction, which I want to say is 94, 95. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
very
about
fuzzy
right.
on the dates, but that iconic poster of Uma Thurman in the black wig laying on the bed was like everywhere in Central Jersey at the time. Uh, and I remember also watching Kids for myself when I was like 10 years old in 95 because the mother of a friend rented it for us. And every kid in New Jersey was obsessed with Kids because they made being a bad kid in New York look so fun and glamorous. And in retrospect, I think they had to like insert that moralizing AIDS arc
Yeah.
into it to make it look like less fun and
Like a
glamorous.
cautionary tale, yeah. You will
Yeah.
die
So,
if you do this. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so like I really identified with and wanted to be like the Chloe Sevigny character back in the day. Um, and I think the movies that made the biggest impression on me at the time were like Kids, Gummo, LIE, because they pretty faithfully reflected what it was like growing up in the tri-state area in the late 90s. And also we watched a lot of TV shows. MTV was huge, a lot of Beavis and Butthead, The Simpsons, that sort of thing. I remember um, my dad letting me stay up past my bedtime while he and his friends were like blasting cigarettes and drinking vodka, watching Beavis and Butthead. That's how Red Scare was born. I mean, I'm kidding, but we're kind of like the modern day female Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
And I think like it's a, like when you read interviews or listen to interviews with directors, and they almost unanimously talk about how many movies they watched as kids, like Scorsese, Woody Allen, they've all said this. And I've always associated that with like being an auteur, but I think that's everybody.
Yeah. Whatever you see as those first movies that really resonate with you go way deep into your heart. When I first saw The Lost Boys, I was like, this is the coolest movie ever.
Yeah, it was like such a formative movie from my youth too. And when we came to the United States, we were like very insular as a family and very poor. And I remember sitting like in our barren apartment in the dark on my mother's lap watching horror movies at like midnight.
Do you think these had any bad effects on you now, looking back as a mom yourself, or just put weird
Um,
images in your head?
that's a good question. I really like, I don't know. I mean, they probably like sharpened my personality as like a troll and an edgelord for sure because they made me cynical at an early age. But I remember showing the baby Mulholland Drive when he was 6 months old. I mean, I wasn't showing it to him. He was just kind of like laying there on the
Yeah.
lounger while Eli and I watched the movie. And I think like my approach to parenting is a lot like my mom's. I just bring him with me everywhere and show him everything and hope it doesn't damage him too much in the future.
LAE is crazy. What a bold performance by Brian Cox.
It's incredible, yeah.
The balls on that guy to take on that type of role.
Yeah. And
So
I
great.
don't, it's crazy. I think like I did Jack Mason's podcast recently and we talked about LIE specifically. And I think a film like that could never get made today, not for any like political or ideological reasons necessarily, but because people really just simply lack the vision and imagination to conceive of something like that.
Yeah, it kind of feels, it's almost like the perfect mix of like Greg Araki and Larry Clark or something, with the way the twinks are portrayed, but with that real grit as well.
Yeah, it's like very ambiguous and semi-consensual and not very safe at all.
And Brian's monologue just about giving the best, when he just casually just puts on the porn, and it's like, I give better blowjobs than her. It's absolutely crazy.
Like, what does he say? Like, I'm the best cocksucker
in the Midwest, or
like
something?
on this side of the LIE.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact quote, but
what kind of things were you reading?
That's a good question. One of the first big like things I did when the podcast started gaining steam was I went on the Bret Easton Ellis podcast, and we drove to his apartment, and I was thinking the whole time that I was like getting catfished because it was an absolute dream. He's one of my literary heroes. And he asked me on that podcast, like, what my early like literary experiences and references were. And I like kind of panicked and was like, Thomas Bernhard. But that came after. The first fiction writer that I was really attached to was Alberto Moravia.
I don't know them. What's their big book?
He's the big books are the Conformist and the Woman of Rome.
Oh, yeah.
The Conformist got made into like a very famous, historically significant movie by Bernardo Bertolucci. Yeah. And I recommend watching the movie and reading the book like close together because they're very like radically different. And I think it's one of those things where the movie is actually possibly better than the book. But I really like his small bourgeois psychodrama novels. My favorite ones are like Conjugal Love, which also got made into a movie starring Brigitte Bardot. Contempt. It was Contempt. Conjugal Love is similar. And then Boredom. And in my mind, before there was like Michel Houellebecq, there was Alberto Moravia, because as the fiction writer, he deals with a lot of the same themes. And all, his main characters are similarly kind of like bourgeois, aging men.
Yeah.
Who are like sexually miserable neurotics.
And what's your favorite Bret Easton Ellis book from the catalog?
From the catalog, that's a good question. I'm a big fan of American Psycho. I'm wearing the American Psycho Christian Bale sweatshirt.
They only do skinny sizes. I'm so pissed off. I want an oversized hoodie from them.
Yeah.
So sad.
What you could probably fit into like a L or XL.
I can, but I think I hit a point in. Well, it was going on before COVID, but during COVID, I literally went on Amazon and bought 3XL Fruit Volume t-shirt packs and wore joggers for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of feel a little bit like Cameron in the big oversized tracksuits.
Yeah.
And they're so fucking comfy that I don't think I can go back to tight fitting clothes ever again.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
Because it's so comfortable. Yeah, I mean, I love Less Than Zero, obviously. Glamorama. I'm a big fan of Bret Easton Ellis in general.
Yeah, Glamorama I think is my favorite book of all time.
Really? Damn.
Yeah. I think the opening, up until the run up to the party, and he gets on the boat, I think that's the most pleasurable 300 pages I've ever read. And even counting down, the chapters count down like a ticking clock.
Mm-hmm.
And Victor's so fun to be in his head, and all the eeriness, like all the rooms are so cold, and there's like confetti everywhere. Such a haunting, weird mood.
What I'm like slightly bitter about in terms of like movies is that no one's really successfully adapted a Bret Easton Ellis or Michel Houellebecq novel to cinema, with the big glaring exception of American Psycho.
You don't like Rules of Attraction?
I have never seen that. Is it good?
Oh, dude, it's the best.
Okay.
Trust me, it's the only one that captures the stream of conscious monologues and that kind of, I don't know, that kind of weird up at 3 a.m. kind of coming down kind of vision that he kind of runs through his books.
Mm-hmm.
That really the tone of the voice is the only one who's got it right.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm
But
gonna watch that tonight.
yeah, I highly recommend that. But I always have this really stupid idea that if I ever got like Jeff Bezos rich,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I hear things like Lesson Zero looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue is there's no bits of a book in the film.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of redid the whole script and took out all the snuff movie and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
child porn video and stuff. I was wondering if I was really rich and could just give a studio money to like Irishman it, where we feed back in the book and they keep all the original characters and just CGI the movie back into place with all the weirdness and darkness in. That's my stupid Hollywood vision for
cast Robert De Niro and do anti-aging technology.
Yeah, just
totally like
anti-age everyone.
Way.
And let's bring in the snuff movie and all that and put it back to the way it should be.
Yeah.
Or like when I heard that William Friedkin was going to make the Serpent, that the TV show that Dasher was in.
Yeah.
He was going to make that in the 80s, but he said he wanted an unknown as a serial killer because it'd be way more sinister. And they were like, no, we need a face. We need an A-lister. And he's like, no, that wouldn't be as creepy if I just cast a random sinister man just killing everyone. And I was like, yeah, fuck that. That's one for my imaginary computer filmmaking machine.
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the best things about movies in general is to like fantasize about all the missed opportunities.
Yeah, it makes me so sad, but it's kind of fascinating to read as well.
But it's also exciting and fun, yeah.
Have you read The Shards yet?
No. Have you?
No, I was listening to the pod and the first chapter was so thrilling that I hit pause and waited for the book to come out.
Okay.
And then I got a copy of a book, but I have this weird thing where I like to have the right edition of the book. And the UK cover sucked, but my friend who works with me was over at Sundance, so I texted her and said, go get me the Simon Schuster American copy instead. So she's got me the right edition, but I haven't got it back yet. So I'm going to wait for that.
I got it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, it's really dumb because my girlfriend's like, you know, it's the exact same words on the page. And I'm like, it's just going to hit different.
But it's not about the words, it's about the vibes, it's about the experience. Yeah.
Like I bought there's a new deluxe edition of The Secret History that came out with like, and the inner sleeves are like marbled and stuff. And it looks like a real, like a antique book. Or is it antiquarian? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. It looks like an ancient book. And I was like, this just smells good. The print is a nice font type. And it just feels so much more pleasurable.
Yeah, I mean, next time you're in New York, you have to go to Argosy.
Oh, where's that?
It's like in Midtown. It's between like Bloomingdale's and Bergdorf's. So I like to go there when I'm like, quote, returning some videotapes. And they have like outdoor cases of like beautiful $3 hardbacks. I kind of went ham and bought a bunch of them and was lugging them home on the train. I bought a book called Political Gore.
That's a great name.
It was incredible. It just like stood out at me on the shelf, and it's about like I guess it's like firsthand literature and letters from the Civil War. And I'm going to run through it real quick and then give it to Dasha because she's like planning this Civil War epic film.
Really?
And I think it could be useful to her. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that.
Okay.
I guess she's talked about it on the podcast very vaguely, so I can't really like spill too many of the beans. Sure. But and then I bought another one called The Sexually Responsive Woman, which is like it's like one of these like 60s or 70s like feminist texts about like female sexual awakening with like a foreword by Betty Friedan. And then the last one I bought was like a very like elementary primer on Russian literature, but you can get a lot of good stuff there.
That sounds great. I went to Mast Books, but I couldn't afford shit. Everything was so
at Mast,
yeah, understandable. It was amazingly created stuff.
I have a really beautiful, like well preserved. I think it's a first edition of Pauline Kael's I Lost It at the Movies that I got at Mass and paid way too much for.
Oh, I'm always trying. Her books are so hard to get in the UK.
They are, yeah. They're
They're
hard to
they're
get like anywhere.
they're all just like American printed editions. My my
Mhm.
my friend sent me a copy of Deeper into Movies first edition, which was amazing. But
Mhm.
I just try and pick them up here and there when I see them. I think she's going to be the basis for Quentin Tarantino's final movie.
Really? I saw
Yeah.
that he was doing a final movie.
Yeah, it came out today, but it's just called the Film Critic, about a female
Okay.
film critic in the 60s. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
maybe he's going to kind of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood it, where it's a version of her.
Uh-huh.
So, what were you doing before the pod? What was your career like before then?
I mean, I had no career. I was truly a bohemian lifestyle. I was a grad student in art history. Well, I dropped out of a PhD program. Uh, and that's really kind of the official reason that I moved to New York. But I think the real reason was I wanted to move to New York and kind of see if I could make my own way. The last thing I was doing before the podcast got off the ground was hostessing at an Italian restaurant in Nolita.
Did you have a plan of what you ideally wanted to do or what you aspired to do? Or
No, never. I still to this day don't have a plan for anything. I kind of wing everything. I don't really have any great aspirations or ambitions. I just do what comes naturally. And I do things, I think, mainly out of frustration because, like, I would prefer if somebody else did them, but no one else is doing them. Like, I think with the podcast, I was so frustrated that no one was saying the truth about feminism and Me Too. And the stars aligned, and I happened to meet Dasha, and it all kind of all's well that ends well. But uh, I would have preferred, I think, if someone else had come around and done it for me.
so, one of the things Eugene pointed out about podcasting, which really goes unrecognized, and I only realize when you start hosting conversations every month, is it's fucking hard work to to deliver an hour podcast of you guys just talking every month and
Yeah.
being so entertaining and articulate and turning on the juice. And that got me wondering, do you guys prepare much? Or do you discuss an episode before you start out?
I mean, I'm gonna let you have the impression that it's incredibly hard work. No, I mean it is in some ways. You have to have a lot of like bandwidth and concentration in the moment. I mean, realistically, it's not that much hard work. Like uh, Paul Scalise, the Lindy Man, has this concept called the 4 hour life, the 4HL, and I think Dasha made like a joke about how she got it wrong because she thought 4HL was when you work like 4 hours a week, but it's actually when you work 8 hours a day and have 4 hours for yourself to
Yeah.
do kind of like leisure and personal improvement and whatever. But we really truly live the 4HL. We definitely, I mean, discuss the docket beforehand and come up with topics, and then we sort of individually read the articles and convene to talk about them. And then she does the recording and I do the editing.
How often do you record them? Are you like,
Once a week. Originally it was 2 times a week. Now it's down to one.
do you find it hard or is it just flow? I was wondering because I always have times when I go to record my intros or my movie ad and I get on the mic and hear myself in the headphones
Mm-hmm.
and just have a weird imposter syndrome or can't get into the headspace and just close the laptop and walk away.
You have that feeling?
All the time. I don't know what it is. The conversations I enjoy, but then listening back, you hear yourself in your headphones and you say, I sound like a fucking idiot, or
That's for sure the hardest part for me because I do the editing. So I usually listen through an episode once it's been recorded. And
mm-hmm.
I personally just really hate the sound of my own voice and like hate my own takes. And it's literally like pulling teeth to sit through it. But, that's how the sausage is made. And like, you got to do what you got to do. And I'm a little bit of a control freak when it comes to like the final product. So I like to crop out all of the dead air and the mouth sounds and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's my worst bit. Where
Yeah, people have advised me to hire an assistant or an editor who can do that part of the job for me, but realistically no one else can do the job because I'm the only one that knows what I want to, take out. When we interviewed Michel Houellebecq, that was kind of an ordeal because we actually hired a French speaking sound engineer to sync the tracks
yeah,
so that the voice, so that Houellebecq's voice would bleed into the translator's voice, so you don't have to listen to the entire kind of unedited thing.
sure.
And that was, a nightmare to manage. It was no one's fault, but I had to go back and recut his cut.
Oh Jesus, yeah. How long did it take?
I mean, it took several hours, and I'm assuming it took him several hours, but realistically, it's ridiculous for me to complain because it's like such an easy and fulfilling and rewarding job.
Yeah, these are first world problems. Like,
Yeah, they
I need
really
to
are,
record
yeah.
my movie advert. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I was I had the worst pod freak out last week. I was interviewing Mia Goth for the podcast, and her publicist gave me the time, and I said, "Cool, got it. 1 p.m. London time, sorted." And then at 12, my phone just starts blowing up, and they're like, "Where the fuck are you?" And I'm like, "I'm at home. What's the deal?" And they're like, "She's on waiting for you now." And they're like, "What?" And like, "We're on Berlin time." And I was like, "Oh shit."
Oh yeah.
So I had to
That
like,
happens.
yeah, so I had to go like put clothes on, print my stuff. I only got to wait like 5 minutes, and she was very graceful, but just the stress when you see a publicist texting you like,
Yeah, like freaking out. I mean, you get a lot of like really impressive guests, uh, which I'm sure is like a testament to your love of the game. But you talked about like imposter syndrome. I don't have imposter syndrome, and I've never had it because everyone's kind of an imposter.
yeah, it gets easier when you hit, well, the more amazing people you speak to, and you kind of realize everyone is just a insecure weirdo with
Yeah, everyone's like
inside
retarded
their
and
head. Yeah.
neurotic. And
Yeah.
I mean that in like a flattering way because they're also like incredible and extraordinary.
Yeah. I was thinking we did a screening of Meet Me in the Bathroom at the weekend, and looking back, I was so embarrassed. I was so obsessed with Interpol. And that was the last time it was the last time in my 20s when it was okay to, in life when you're trying on different personalities and identities and uniforms. And I think that was my last time in the changing room when I was trying to wear like skinny fit suits and
Yeah, be a hipster, skinny
yeah, oh my
tie,
God, just
like the
wearing really,
YSL look.
yeah, just like wearing really painful brogues and drain pipe trousers and stuff. And like, I can barely move. My feet are bleeding, but I think I'm serving some real New York Interpol looks right now.
It's giving indie.
It's giving big indie sleaze. And then when you see them on the movie and they're talking about being so lost and depressed, and I was like, man, you guys were the fucking coolest people in pop culture at the time. And then you're like, wait, they were just fucked up and sad as well, which is kind of comforting as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was just thinking about the Killers
Yes.
and how I had this really horrible nightmare after the Ion Pack did an Oscar screening, and I was like in a room full of people who I know, and it's kind of like scary because you're like, oh my God, I like know so many people and we're all in the same boat together. And I had this nightmare afterward that I was in the same room and I basically said that the Killers were like the best band that's ever existed in the world and that they're like better than the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Doors, and everybody like mercilessly mocked me, which is clearly just like poorly veiled symbolism for like my life being like a poster and a podcaster and getting like mercilessly mocked for my shitty hot takes. But I do remember like having like such a vivid connection to the Killers, and because also Brandon Flowers was like a huge Morrissey fan, and in my mind there's like this delusional web of connections. Wait, sorry, I think there's a UPS guy outside. Would you mind if I ran
No, of course, go
downstairs
for
real
it.
quick? Okay, I'll BRB. Hi, sorry, I'm back. I should have warned you ahead of time.
No, that's totally fine. Those moments make really good interludes in the pod.
Oh,
So
awesome. Okay.
it's a nice edit moment. I should tell you, Morrissey used to come to my record store every month and buy stuff.
Tell me more.
He was charming because he'd be like, hello, Stephen.
Uh-huh.
And then he'd be like, have you got the Earrings of Madame D on DVD? And he'd always want these really old movies. And I'm like, yeah, we've got it. And he's like, you've got it? Thank God people still care about these old movies. And I'm like, yeah, of course. It just got reissued as a new transfer. And he's like, delightful. Thank you. But he'd always buy new doll CDs. And I'm like, I'd always troll him and be like, you should check these guys out. They're pretty good. And he's like, I know, because they're like his heroes. But I don't know why. Maybe it was just like starter packs for friends or something, because he'd be buying really like obvious.
Maybe he was handing them out. That's how I am with like Bronze Age mindset. I just handed it out like stocking stuffers to all my friends. So I bought like 12 copies or something. Yeah, I mean, Morrissey I really credit my mom and Morrissey, both Geminis, for my like film education, because Morrissey's the other guy that really taught me everything I know. And I think the Killers have a kind of Morrisian aesthetic, and that it's very cinematic. Like you can
they're
see,
definitely
like, Mr.
Children of the Smiths for sure.
Yeah, and you can see like Mr. Brightside could literally be adapted into a movie, aka an extended play, like music video. But Morrissey was how I found out about like Serge Gainsbourg and Pasolini.
Yeah, I can see that. And all the Smiths covers all had great film references or like UK TV culture references on their artwork and stuff. When I was in Manchester last year, I was trying to get into the Salford Lads Club to have a look around. And it was always closed, but I knew they did tours and stuff. And I messaged them and just said, I'd love to come in. I'm here for the weekend. And I think he must have thought I was a bigger deal than I was. Because he was like, yeah, I'm there Tuesday. Just come by, ask for Jim. And he opened the place up, especially just for me and my girlfriend, and took me on like a guided tour of the entire place. And he showed me like the gym where they do all the training, and they still bring in teenage. It started off for kids from broken homes or nothing to do in their spare time. So to get them off the streets, they do football tournaments or gym training and stuff. And most of the kids who went there now volunteer there, and there's this great ecosystem going on. And he's like, yeah, New Water like send in a bunch of merch every year, and we raffle that often, and we take the kids on holiday and stuff like this. It was so great. And then we went to the merch store, and he was like, do you want like a Salford Lads Club soap? And I was like, obviously. I tell Dasha every time I see her, your Loveline episodes are the most salacious and fun shows you do. How was the last one was insane with girl who was fucking her brother.
Yeah.
Do you remember? That was crazy.
Yeah, whenever we get questions like that, I always assume people are like trolling or catfishing us. And then I try to answer as if it's sincere or whatever, but you never quite know. And I think that's like part of the fun.
Yeah, no, that one sounded legit. That was too specific. You can kind of tell, well, you guys always flag it when you feel someone's over egging it or
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to be too provocative or salacious. But that just seemed really weird and like innocent's the wrong word, but it was had a naivety about it. Like, is this weird? You know, should I be doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, and I mean the whole concept of the Loveline episodes obviously came from the show Loveline that was
Yeah.
hosted by Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla and was also kind of a part of the Anna extended universe when I was growing up because I remember um, falling asleep to it, like laying in the dark, listening to Loveline on my headphones.
And you were the only person I still hear talking about the brilliance of Eastbound and Down.
Yeah, Eastbound and Down, I think my hot take about that show is that it's a truly intellectual show.
Yeah, because you like Stevie, right? Is Stevie your guy in that show?
I love Stevie because he's such a fucking loser. He's like an irredeemable, unattractive, pathetic loser, and to make like a redeemable character out of that is really incredible. There's nothing to like about most of the main characters.
No, that's really refreshing in shows. I remember when I was listening to Tarantino's pod and someone said, I hate this movie and I didn't like anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And Tarantino was itchy shouting and said, fuck that, who cares about likability? Are they interesting? Which I think should be the case for all characters
like
in
the litmus test. Yeah. And I love,
yeah.
that scene where they're trying to like make a banner for the Mexican baseball team and he's like, what the fuck? It's supposed to be a TIFF, not a JPEG. I mean, it's like a brilliant, brilliant show. The other show that I really love that you may be familiar with as a British person is Keeping Up Appearances.
Yes, my aunt looks exactly like Hyacinth, so that was always really funny for us growing up.
That's like a really incredible unsung show.
Yeah, she was just. I met someone who was in that the other day. I went to a screening of If, and one of the guys was saying that he basically, after this movie kind of flopped and went into TV and just had a bit part in Keeping Up Appearances for the rest of his career. But
yeah. And I think Patricia Rutledge is an interesting character because she's still alive. She's in her 90s. She never married or had kids. I actually, the first time I went to London, my sister and I missed our flight back to the United States because we were watching Patricia Rutledge in some theater production. I don't even remember what. And we like totally like blew it and didn't make it in time to the airport, but it was like worth it. I think like Brits do class comedy like nobody else. That's really like what I love in movies and shows is kind of like bourgeois psychodrama.
Bourgeois psychodrama is Keeping Up Appearances.
That's like my beat.
Yeah. What do you watch now? Are you watching anything good?
I don't watch any new movies really, unless like I have to quote review them for the pod. I'm really just like not interested, which is like a bad thing to say because I sound like such a pretentious boob and like contrarian. But I mean, watch a lot of old films. My favorite directors are like Fassbinder, Carlos Suara, who just died. He did Cria Cuervos and Peppermint Frappe and Honeycomb, which is like they're three of my favorite films easily. I watch a lot of Michael Haneke, another guy who I love because he reminds me of that. He's very like Austrian school, like Thomas Bernhard, Alfred Jelinek, whose book he adapted obviously into The Piano Teacher. I just started watching A Death in Venice.
I've not seen that. It's
this really famous film.
Yeah.
So far, it's really good. It stars Dirk Bogarde, who's like my absolute favorite actor of all time. He has the same birthday as the baby, March 28th. And he's like the principal actor in my absolute favorite trilogy of films of all time, which were made by Harold Pinter and Joseph Losey. I mean, Harold Pinter is like a famous British playwright,
Yeah.
and Joseph Losey was an American director who actually had to flee the United States during like the McCarthy era because he was branded as a communist. And he went to Britain and got into this very productive and fortuitous partnership with Harold Pinter, kind of like Red Scare. And they made three incredible films. Uh, The Servant, which stars Dirk Bogarde as this kind of like gay for pay grifter who impersonates a servant and worms his way into a rich man's life with disastrous consequences. The Accident, which stars Dirk Bogarde as like a washed up and resentful academic who attempts to initiate an affair with his beautiful student. And I think the actress, her name was Jacqueline Sassard. I think she's like one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen on screen. And she disappeared really after that and never went on to do much with her career. And then like my favorite film of all time possibly is The Go-Between, which is Julie Christie and Alan Bates. She plays an aristocratic woman who's in an ill-fated affair with like a tenant farmer on her family's property.
I haven't seen this. I love Julie Christie. She's one of the best looking people ever.
She is. She's incredible. And she's like Kate Blanchett. She's like very handsome in an almost androgynous way. But those are like the nearest, dearest movies to me. And like nobody's seen them. It's crazy. It's very hard to get people to like sign up to watch movies or TV shows because people are busy and don't have time.
Criterion's re-releasing The Servant.
Oh, awesome. You should watch it.
Yeah, I saw that they did like a 4K re-release last year, which was great. It was so unbelievably dark.
Yeah.
And I love all the mind games between the two and the way it slowly switches dynamic, which is great to watch. And it's got that kind of, almost got that David Mamet style kind of grift and con going for it as well, where you're never quite sure who's hustling who.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Bogart was actually in Fassbender's first and only English language film, which I never watched like fully. I started watching it and gave up. But he's had an interesting career. And then I watched a ton of movies during the pandemic because there was like literally nothing to do but watch movies and have sex, which is how all the COVID babies were born, But the other movies that I watched kind of fairly recently that stuck out to me were Peter Greenaway, The Draftsman's Contract, and Elaine Corneau, All the Mornings in the World.
Yeah, I like his Cook the Thief, His Wife and His Lover movie.
That one I haven't seen.
Oh, that's a good one.
But yeah, that's really my vibe. And I hope I can like manipulate and influence people into watching those films because they're absolutely worth it and life-changing.
Do you have any ambitions to write a book of essays? I've been telling Eli every time I speak to him that this should be
everyone keeps saying this.
Yes.
I just got lunch with Jordan Castro and he was saying the same thing. What I would really like to do, I think, is nestle the essays into a kind of seething coping monologue.
Right. To be performed?
For plausible deniability,
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. I think I have to kind of work it out. But I think it's something that I have to do because so many people have requested it and I would hate to disappoint.
Yeah, we all can't be wrong.
That's the only other reason to do things. Desperation, revenge, and to avoid disappointing everyone around you.
Yeah. So you're thinking like a live reading, like a monologue, or a...
No, I mean, I was just thinking of just copying my heroes and doing something like what Houellebecq does or what Bret Easton Ellis does or what Bap does. Basically, it kind of like angry, delusional, delirious monologue from an incredibly like unreliable narrator, but obviously from like a woman's point of view. one of the things that I always loved about Welbeck that he said in an interview, I'm probably like paraphrasing it really badly. He was asked why he doesn't write kind of like fully fleshed out, complete and sympathetic female characters.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, like, I'm a man, it would be like pretentious and unconvincing if I tried to speak from the point of view of a woman. And the other
Yeah.
thing that he didn't say, but that I would add, is also that it's not so much that his female characters are flat, it's that all of his characters are flat.
What would be your starter pack for people wanting to get into Welbeck? Platform?
I'm a big fan of Platform. That's my favorite one.
Same.
I always like the cliche one. American Psycho, Platform, like the obvious one.
Yeah, well, didn't Iron Pack say that most of the time they're the best and biggest for a reason?
Yeah, that's probably true.
And you can kind of be contrary. Well, sometimes the other ones hit different, but often the best and biggest are the biggest for a reason.
I really loved Whatever, which is like not his most popular book, but it's the book that has the most impactful passage for me about the analyzed woman.
I haven't read that one,
which I was tweeting about recently.
Right,
it's good. It's one of the earlier ones.
And without possibility of an island, Brett said that's his favorite, and embarrassingly, I put it back down because the UK cover is hideous.
The possibility of an island is the sci-fi one where there's the guy and then there's future clones of the guy. That one's probably like my least favorite, but it's Welbeck, so it's one of my favorite books overall. And I have a lot of I'm not such a fan of like the structure and the plot, but I do like all of his little observations and takes. I mean, I think Welbeck is like the classic example of a writer that I would seek to emulate, because basically he uses books, the plot of his books, the characters of his books as a vehicle for his own takes.
Yeah. I think we've covered everything.
I don't have any like closing remarks. I have one, which is as much shit as I talk and as like contrarian as I am about film, and people really don't like my movie takes. I'm really optimistic about the future of film overall.
Why? What's giving you this hope? Anything in particular?
Well, because I think there's like a crisis of faith across the board in all areas of culture and politics. And obviously like entertainment and Hollywood are totally captured and everything's become like totally political, and films and shows these days are often made literally just to be memed or to be shoehorned into like the hot take economy. But that I think gives you a lot of latitude and freedom. And there's like a lot of independent filmmakers like Dasha, like Peter and Betsy, like Eugene, who are doing their own thing, and I think will like come out on top and will carry the industry on their shoulders eventually.
Yeah, I think because there's no budgets or studio deals to be had.
Yeah.
I think everyone is just forging their own path with this kind of disparate indie landscape. So.
And you can really like do whatever the fuck you want now.
Yeah, because there's no studio notes or no one's gonna give you any edit. So just why not make the film you want to make? Because the stakes are low in a way that.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. The stakes being low, the expectations being low is a great thing because you can always exceed them.
Boom. That was me and Anna. Subscribe to Red Scare if you want. And that's it. Thank you to Joshua Eustace, aka Telephone Tel Aviv. And thanks for you guys for listening. We'll speak soon.